give us a sense of what it was like in the room. We all heard the speech, but what was the atmosphere like?
Well, look, in the room, there's loads of optimism because these are Andy Burnham's people. He's doing it here in Manchester. And they really think it is the moment where their man, the so-called King of the North, if you like, comes down to Westminster and takes power. Now, in 3 weeks' time, he's highly likely to be our Prime Minister unless there is a leadership contest, which looks extremely unlikely indeed. And this moment mattered because it was the first time, really, that we have heard from Andy Burnham about what he will be as a Prime Minister, what is his leadership pitch, what is his vision for Britain and the economy. And it is really unusual because he hasn't had to fight a general election and lay out a manifesto in which you try and sell your politics and your vision to the whole country. He hasn't had to face a leadership race as of yet with MPs, so he hasn't really had to have those sorts of grillings or scrutiny. He hasn't really even stood up in the Commons and said anything at all, so he hasn't really been questioned by MPs. And you saw here today, he gave a speech in which he took no questions, but there are so many questions about what Andy Burnham will do as Prime Minister, and there are lots of questions that flow from that speech. There were a couple of really big announcements in there. One was that he's going to create a number 10 of the North. He's going to devolve some decision-making structures. He's going to devolve perhaps tax-raising powers. He's going to devolve powers both to this number 10 of the North, but all around the regions. He talked really about devolution in a meaningful way, but we don't have any details about that. He also made a massive announcement there saying that he's going to embark upon the biggest council house building programme since the post-war. The current Labour government have already earmarked £39 billion for additional housing. Is he taking that budget? Is he going to raise more money? Massive questions around that. And I think for me, having covered Keir Starmer's ascent to power and what Burnham said just then, there are so many parallels actually between what these two leaders are talking about. Keir Starmer talked about a decade of national renewal when he was making his pitch to become Prime Minister in July 2024, ahead of that election. And you heard Andy Burnham there talking about a mission, a 10-year mission to raise living standards. Keir Starmer talked about opportunities for young people, both in the election and at Labour Party conference last year. Andy Burnham there making a big play about young people, reindustrialisation, improving education to give young people pathways to good jobs, very similar to what Keir Starmer said. So there are parallels between what these two men have talked about. On devolution, Keir Starmer introduced a Take Back Control bill in July in 2023, which was all designed around devolution and taking power from Westminster to the regions. So what are we really getting with Burnham here? Are we getting a better storyteller? Are we getting a more decisive leader that's going to drive change faster? And I think there are lots of questions around that are yet to be answered. But I think when you go back to this room and this moment, you know, I spoke to Johnny Reynolds, the chief whip, afterwards. He's an MP, so around here, so he came, Lucy Powell, the deputy Labour leader, and I think what they were talking about was a sense of optimism that Keir Starmer has, if you like, built the foundation stones, and now it is for Andy Burnham to turbocharge the Labour agenda. But look, he's faced no scrutiny really beyond the Makefield by-election. He has to go from convincing people that live in the constituency of Makefield to vote for him as their MP, and now he's got a hell of a job on his hands to take over and talk to the entire country about what sort of Prime Minister he's going to be, and that is a massive challenge, and at the moment there are many, many outstanding questions.
Beth Rigby there joining us live from Manchester. Good to see you. Thank you so much.